This is the 17th season of Bass Talk Live with your hosts, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrak. BTL is brought to you by Lawrence, Bass Cat Boats, APCO, Duck and Fishing, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, and Denali Rods. BTL coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where Matt and I are going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, how you doing, man?
I've never seen you this excited.
I think you're
I've never,
way overanalyzing
I honestly
the whole situation.
have never seen you this excited.
That's not true.
If you had this 6 minutes before we went live when we had Daniel Whitehouse queued up behind stage, Mark was just firing off questions.
Hopefully good questions.
I mean, you are pumped.
I'm not. I'm excited. But
This is business. This is well, actually, it was just business. There was absolutely no bass fishing involved in it.
The dude fishes.
No, between the talk behind stage.
Oh, yeah.
It was just two successful businessmen talking. And you know what I was doing over here?
What?
I was Googling Lake Toho February on YouTube, already trying to figure out what the heck I need to do in the first open of the year. That's what was going on.
That's proactiveness there, man. That's good. All right, good show today. We're going to have a gentleman. His name is Daniel Whitehouse on, and we're gonna do a show trying to help not just the professional anglers out, but the weekend guys that make a little money, and hopefully give you some ideas and some concepts that might help you on the business side. And then we're also going to talk about a idea that Daniel has that could, let's just say, finance.
Concept,
vision.
idea.
Vision.
What is the difference between an idea and a concept?
That's
is a concept a more structured idea? Is an idea the
maybe.
genesis of a concept?
Yeah, maybe. They're interchangeable a little bit. I don't know. Vision. How about that? I like the word vision.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, he has this vision concept.
Now it's a vision concept. Yeah. I feel like a vision is less structured than a concept.
Might be.
I feel like a vision is not like on paper or you can't but a concept you can.
Yeah. We'll see. He'll tell us what it is. Anyway, so we're going to get into that. All right, I have some business to take care of. And one thing throughout my life that I have been very, very, I have been a stickler when it comes to this. And when I make a wager with anybody, I am up to the minute, got to pay it off. And if I lose, I expect the same thing in return for whoever I have the wager with.
May or may not have been a backhanded shot at me. Continue.
Okay. So Matt and I had a wager, and we couldn't do it on the show yesterday because we had a bunch of stuff to catch up on and everything. So the wager was, is Mike Iaconelli going to fish the Elite Series? And I said no. Matt said yes. And as we found out Monday night, Ike is fishing the the Bassmaster Elite Series in 2022. The wager was I wanted Lowenbrow, but it doesn't exist anymore.
I actually researched it. It does not exist. Like one of our listeners found a Lowenbrow sign, like on a mirror.
Yeah.
And then Brian the Carpenter, who we deemed as one of the most underrated people in the industry, came on with some background and history of Lowenbrow.
That was very interesting.
I did find that very interesting.
Yeah.
But as far as putting a bottle of Lowenbrow to your lips, I think that ship sailed in the 80s.
Well, it doesn't matter because I lost the wager. So, it's true to my word. Here we go.
Oh, gosh.
So, here is an 18-pack, Matthew, of Coors Light.
18? That's 6 more than...
Hang on.
Than I requested.
I know. I felt generous, okay? Then, in celebration of the return, and I'm going to look right in the camera and say this, it was the most compelling 15 minutes of television that I've ever seen in my life.
Are we still on the...
we never talked about it.
Yellowstone?
We never talked about it. The greatest first 15 minutes of a television show in the history of television.
What makes you say that?
Because of the way that the season ended, and nobody really knew who was going to live, who was going to die, what was going to happen. In that first 15 minutes, dude, you were just absolutely glued to what was taking place. But there was still that hanging chad of, man, is he going to live?
Is that a Florida voting reference?
Yeah. Is he going to live? Is he going to live? So,
that was that Al Gore back in the day?
Dude, I don't remember.
Was that the hanging? I remember that. I was just young enough, and I was a page in the Illinois House of Representatives then, and I was really into... Anyway, continue. The first 15 minutes of Yellowstone, season 4.
Yeah. It was awesome. So, in celebration of that, you have a bonus that you can celebrate with all your cowboy friends that you have. Here you go, man. Right here.
I don't have any cowboy friends.
Yes, you do. You hang around with them all the time. A 12-pack of the Yellow Jackets. Here you go.
How much do you think they pay for Yellowstone?
Quite a bit.
Good Lord. Now I'm...
So my wager, my debt has been paid off, and you need to celebrate Yellowstone with the original Coors beer. When's the last time you had an original Coors?
Original Coors?
Yeah.
A month ago. I'll buy the little pony bottles every now and then.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. Can you tell the difference?
Yeah.
A little bit?
You just feel a little bit more manly with the gold.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's kind of like when you go to a Wednesday nighter, you just get the original.
Yeah.
You get the older guys.
Okay.
Original. Yeah, I knew I liked you.
So what is that?
Carolina rig?
Is that a total of 30 beers?
18,
is that right?
18 plus 12.
30. So there you have it, man.
Thank you.
Maybe I can win the next wager, whatever that might be. Oh, here was a question also that I got yesterday. Unrelated to Yellowstone. By the way, folks, I
don't know why you're so intrigued with Yellowstone because I don't feel like you can relate to Yellowstone. Like you...
What? Power?
Well, okay, from
influence?
From
Are you kidding me?
From that aspect, but I meant like the Western. Like you're not like a...
I like those shows.
I just can't
love Gunsmoke,
Here's what it comes down to. I can't picture you riding a horse, wearing Wranglers, or wearing a cowboy hat. That's all it comes down to.
That will never happen.
That's what the wager should have been. And I could have gotten all 3 of those. I could have made you wear a pair of Wranglers during the show.
Never owned a pair. I've never owned a pair of Wranglers. Never
That's
had
what I say.
I think a cowboy hat would be kind of cool.
To me, a cowboy hat's kind of like a tournament jersey. You got to earn it.
Really? Do you have a cowboy hat?
Absolutely not.
But you have boots. Do you have Wranglers?
No, they're restricting.
Do you have the cowboy shirts?
No.
No?
Not really, just the button downs.
So when you go to the rodeo, what do you wear?
Shorts and tennis shoes. I would wear flip-flops, but you don't want your foot to get cut off by a hoof.
Is that what everybody's sporting around there behind the scenes? Shorts and tennis shoes?
I feel like this, just normal
Interesting.
stuff. Except the barrel racers, they've got like, whatever, Dolce & Gabbana, all the fancy stuff.
Yeah. No, I
Well, thank you for making good on your...
Yeah, dude, I am thoroughly entrenched in Yellowstone. I think it's...
Mark will take me to the train station. He's attempted to several times, and I've been like,
will
are we going to
not.
the train station?
No. I would never do that.
Jumped out of the bed of the truck in the nick of time.
No. Anyway, I think it's the best series to come out since The Sopranos. I really do. All right, now, getting back to the other question. Somebody sent me an email. They said, hey, what would you set the odds at for Ike winning Angler of the Year next year? So I ask you, Matt, what would you set the odds at Mike winning Angler of the Year in 2022?
Well, historic, if you look at it in the great anglers, the odds of winning Angler of the Year are not that great. You have what? Aaron had 3 of them. Kevin has 7 of them. Clark Wenlet has 3 on FLW, 1 on the Elite Series. You have a lot of singles. Gerald Swindle has 2 of them. So 20-1.
Oh, okay. I would realistically, I would put it at like 7-1. And the reason I would put it at 7-1, one, you're going to get some action on it.
Yeah.
But number 2, I think he is even more motivated to win everything that he can possibly win over these next 2 to 10 years, whatever it is. Seriously.
Yeah, but you don't think that Swindle is motivated and Brandon Polnick is motivated and Jacob Porosnik is motivated and Clark Wenlet's motivated?
Dude, it is a different level with him.
How many does he have? 1?
1, I think.
So he's fished 21 years not as motivated as this next year?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are different levels of motivation. All right? The gear that you run on from a motivation standpoint, it varies. I mean, look at your motivation. And it also depends on what the situations are that surround you. Mm-hmm. Do you think people are more motivated if they're down to their last dollar and they got to go out and they've got to cash a check in order to, supply up on the beanie weenies?
You know what? You're right, Mark. I'm going to say that. You're right. I'll lower my odds because I agree with you. I think he's fishing at peace this year, and he's 100% in. He's not in that 3 or 4 years where he's like, where do I want to be? Am I done? Do I want to do the TV? Like, he has all the options on the table, and he's 100% committed to fish this. So, yeah, I think his odds would be better now that I think about it.
6 to 7-1 is what I'd put it at.
I'd put it at 10-1, just because of how difficult it is to win Angler of the Year and the things that have to go right, and you can't run into a buzzsaw like a Seth Fighter who has a crazy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's just incredibly difficult to win an Angler of the Year in anything. So 10-1, I think, is exceptionally high.
I would put $100 on that easily at 10-1.
Should I just try to start stacking cases of Coors over here?
No, you can't do that. Okay, I'm taking Ike. You're taking the field. I mean, that's a stupid wager.
Then what do you mean you would? How would we bet on this then?
The only way, you could do a couple of things. Does he finish? Do you want to bet a case if he finishes in the top 5? Do you think he's going to finish in the top 5?
Well, how about I take an angler and you take an angler?
And whoever finishes higher? I'm taking Ike then. I'll take Ike. Who you taking?
So you're going Ike is going to finish higher than
whoever you pick.
Well, I'll just go with the reigning and defending Seth.
Okay.
That's a fair bet
I like that bet.
Seth is not. I mean, because Seth is he's the king of the hill right now.
He is.
So Ike's got to knock off the king of the hill.
All right, so a 12-pack on Ike will finish
not
higher.
Low and brow, something that can be purchased, nothing that you have to climb Mount Everest to find in some.
No, I'm good with that.
Mountain camp that they brew out of some berry that only grows once a year.
Hams, a 12-pack of Hams. You ever seen Hams beer?
No, I've seen Pig's Eye.
Hams.
You never got the Pig's Eye cans at where was our first meeting at the Mont?
Yeah.
The $1 Pig's Eye cans at the Mont?
No.
We're not doing
beer.
a shave your head bet.
Oh, heavens no. Heavens no. All right, so I'm taking Ike. You're taking Seth Fighter. 12-pack of your choice.
Are we done with tournaments for the year?
I think so.
There's nothing.
Yeah. Are you fishing the last bass here in Oklahoma?
I don't think so. So there is this upcoming weekend a derby on 10 killer.
Do what now?
There's a derby on 10 killer.
What is that?
It might be an ABA or something like that.
But you're not doing the last bass.
No, because like I think we signed up. You were gonna sign up too late, and then you're like the last to take off, and then you have to weigh in first, and then everyone goes out there, so then you have to sit there for an hour and a half while everyone else fishes around you. And
okay. So it's an ABA on 10 killer.
I think it's an ABA. I get them all confused. Yeah.
Is it a team ABA
I don't
or an
think
individual?
So. I need to look into it more.
All right.
I just saw it.
So you might have one more derby.
No, and then I've got that deal after Thanksgiving on Table Rock. Just a little.
The what? Oh, the
OBT deal.
Oh yeah.
Like they do their annual
meeting
and then they bring us down.
I got you.
But there's a high-end griddle at stake.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen those griddles that you can plug in? So if you want to get a nice sear on your steak, you can plug the griddle in outside. Big flat top griddle. You stir fry on it and stuff. Yeah, like a high-end griddle.
Had no idea.
Jacks me up more than. I guess you could just win a tournament and go buy a griddle, but
wow.
Every time you break it out and you're like, see that griddle? I want it.
Did you see what place Oklahoma is in after Tuesday night?
8th again.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter until that final ranking. They've got 3 tough games coming up. We'll see what happens. Hey, somebody out there help me. I did not look it up. I don't want to.
Justin Phillips, you got to fish the last bass.
Yeah.
Justin Phillips is going to win the last bass. He just wants more entries. It's like one of the best on Eufaula. He's already beat me.
Oh, jeez.
He beat me in a 2013 BFL. And this is the most cold-hearted thing I'd ever seen. I go out, I catch 21 pounds even in my first year of the BFLs in a 2007, that Skeeter. Something was messed up with the motor. I could only go 35 miles an hour. I ran. I catch 21 pounds on a trap. I weigh it in. Everyone's like, you got this in the bag. Like Hallman, Jeff Reynolds, 17, 18 pounds.
Yeah.
And Justin Phillips just sits there with his boat on the bank and waits. Any more fish? Any more? Oh, yeah. I'm going to weigh mine. 21.8.
Yeah, that's cruel, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's
haven't sniffed one of those little BFL trophy sets then.
That's
of course, I haven't fished any since then.
That's not very nice.
Still remember that.
And you always will.
Mm-hmm. 21 on a trap.
That's kind of cool, man. Did you lose any?
No. I caught him on a it was a long time ago. I had this, I think it's called Japanese shad. It's like this weird kind of brown, silver, clearish red-eye shad.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why. I think they were probably like a bargain bin or something, and I picked them up and I caught them all on that.
Huh.
Every single one. Choked.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, I want to say this, and then we'll take a break and come back with Daniel. But I received an email yesterday from somebody that I haven't spoken with in I don't know how long,
that was
30
super
years.
Nice.
And his name is Zach Bandy, and I want to shout out to Zach. A lot of great memories there, and that email that he sent me, it really, really meant a lot. And hopefully things are going much, much better for him. He's just a typical guy that got really into the bass fishing game, made some poor decisions, and has turned his life around. And I want to see what he's got going on now down in Eufaula.
I gotta get out of the doghouse for missing your birthday, so I'm gonna read a portion of this email. It was pretty cool.
Oh, dude, no.
Mark, you had such a positive influence on my life that you probably have no idea about it.
I told you, I haven't talked to him for 30 years.
You introduced him to music, life lessons, and now he's into fishing.
Yeah. Well, he was into fishing then.
Yeah.
He was in the original Anglers Anonymous Bass Club that we were in many, many, many years ago.
That was really nice.
Yeah. Got him a job at UPS and would always check on him and stuff. But, man, he's got a senior in high school now and seems to be having a very successful life.
I wish
so
I
that
knew
was
you
cool,
back
man.
in the day when you were first getting into it.
Why?
With the wraps and the jerseys. I just wish I could just sit back and observe Mark Jeffries Bass Federation Nation with Team Smith Optics.
I know, but you know what it was, dude? I was doing stuff that other people weren't doing at the time.
No, that's always been your MO. Like I said, like how have you lasted so long? As soon as we do something, literally like 2 months later, you'll come in and be like, all right, we got what are we doing next?
Yeah.
There is no status quo, which is how you survive.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff
fails.
Sucks. Some of my ideas fail. And some of yours, but I think that's how you've made it work.
Yeah.
You're always thinking about the next thing.
Yeah, so big shout out to Zach. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back with Daniel Whitehouse. Talk a little business here on a Wednesday. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
FS puts the full range of Lowrance fish finding tools at your fingertips. Find fish with active imaging 3-in-1 with Fish Reveal. Target fish with active target live sonar and watch fish react to your lure as it happens. Built-in C-Map Contour Plus charts make it easy to find key fishing areas. But best-in-class charts and powerful sonar is only the beginning. It's easy to build your fully networked FS system. From sonar and waypoint sharing to controlling the Ghost trolling motor and power poles. Lowrance Elite FS. Targeting fish just got easier.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
There's one.
You know what works. Now you need a bunch of them so you don't run out on your next fishing trip. The Big Bite Pro Packs feature 25 baits per pack at a price far below that of having to buy 5 packs of regular baits. Now the Pro Pack has a big brother, the Mega Pack. The Mega Pack features 100 of your favorite baits.
With these, one bag is usually plenty to get through the day. It helps me stay organized, helps me save money, helps me catch more fish.
Combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-Bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
I've made my living on the water for over 20 years.
For 14 years.
For over 23 years.
I've worn a bunch of different clothing brands over the years.
Some companies big.
And some companies small.
All of them said they were making clothing for us.
But none of them knew us.
None of them were us.
Except for one.
Except for one.
Except one.
AFCO.
AFCO.
AFCO. AFCO.
Fishing isn't part of us. It is us.
Everyone, Brandon Polnick here. People always be asking me what I got tied on. And I'm like, X-Zone Lures. And they're like, Brandon, why you got X-Zone Lures tied on? And I'm like, let me show you why.
The bite.
Get out of there. Get out of there. Oh, yeah. Oh, freaking. Get in here. Oh, God. Giant. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
I think you get the point.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week. Dude, before we go to our guests real quick, this really kind of bothers me. Maybe it shouldn't, but I was flipping around the radio on the way to practice, and they're already playing Christmas music, dude. It's not even Thanksgiving yet. There is a channel, a mainstream channel here in Oklahoma City, that is already playing Christmas music 100% of the time. It's like I was flipping around and all of a sudden there's Bing Crosby. You know, Chestnuts on an Open Fire.
We'll add that to the list. Fescue, 60 Minutes, premature.
I didn't
Christmas
say I
music.
listened to it, but come on, man. I'm just glad nobody in the neighborhood has their Christmas lights on yet. Now, they do down the street, down toward Bob's house.
Add that to the list.
What's your thoughts, real quick?
Next, you're going
It
to
doesn't even
be
bother
complaining
you.
about how hard the Fig Newton packages are to open.
Oh, jeez. That and you got the wrong color of Velcro shoes for me. Jeez. Maybe I should just go back to the bumper music. Yeah, that's not telling my age right there, is it?
You could kind of turn that into Mannheim Steamrollers. I mean, all you're missing is a well-timed bell.
I would like to go see that, actually. That would be kind of cool. You know, once Thanksgiving gets here, crank up the music, man. But just the day after Halloween, I mean, come on. That's just a little too early for me. All right, it is time to bring in our special guest, Mr. Daniel Whitehouse, and we're going to talk a little business side of the game of fishing. So let's bring him in now. Daniel, how you doing, man?
I'm well, guys. Thanks for having me. How you doing this morning?
Doing well. Appreciate you coming on the show and kind of teeing up. We kind of teed this up. Matt did a good job kind of making it a little different. We're not going to talk spinner baits. We're not going to talk crankbaits. We're going to talk the business side of this game, not just from a professional side, but also from the people out there that like to make a little money on the weekend and kind of grow their income annually from their performance on their local or regional tournaments. So we'll get into that. And then also, I'm very intrigued in hearing the concept that you have about possibly helping people out that want to pursue a professional career monetarily, and really this whole idea of how they could help with this plan to generate revenue to help out on the entry fees and everything else that they have going on from a professional level. So first thing, though, kind of give everybody a background on yourself to where they have a good understanding of, yes, you're an angler. Yes, you fish tournaments.
And catches them.
And you are definitely in the business world. So go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. I've been, like many of us, I grew up fishing with my dad, and it's been something that's been a major part of my life ever since I caught my first bass at 6 years old that he had mounted for me. I know many people don't mount bass anymore, but that was what we did back in those days when you caught your first bass. So that one still hangs on the wall and at home, and fished tournaments for 20 plus years, mostly on the team side, and now fishing more the individual side, and so that's turned into many different life lessons and etiquette, and the people that you meet along the way that really keeps us all engaged in the sport and involved with it. So I happen to be an attorney, and my practice focuses on business and a lot of technology companies. So, high growth and intellectual property type businesses that are always looking for ways to expand their business. And as we well know, to expand, you need funding to do that. So we'll get into how that happens and how it can relate to the fishing side. But enjoy getting out as often as I can, and trying to win a few bucks here and there.
All right, let's do this. Would it be a good idea to split it up kind of into two parts? First, let's talk about the weekend guy, the local guy, and then we can jump into your vision of the concept that you have from a revenue perspective.
Sounds great. And, the weekend local guy is the guy who's going to turn, or gal, who's going to turn into the future pro if that's their trajectory. So everybody starts out in the weekend jackpot, or, fishing the local BFLs or the Opens, or, anything of that nature, right? And in order to do that, if you've cashed a check in any of these, regulated type tournaments, more than just the buddy tournaments, you've remembered at the end of the year, you get that tax document, that 1099. And if you're smart, you take that to your accountant and you turn in that check, and they say, oh, well, gosh, this is other income that you received through the year. And that goes on to your other income for the year. So if you do that quite a few times and you win a big payday or even smaller paydays at multiple events, that money adds up at the end of the year. And it's truly just income that you didn't pay any tax on at the time you received it, most likely. So at the end of the year, you get a surprise tax bill that, oh my gosh, I made 10 grand in tournament winnings and I didn't pay tax on that. So now I gotta pay Uncle Sam. And if you live in a state that has state taxes, then you have to pay your state as well. A way that the weekend and evolving angler can structure themselves to account for that revenue is by creating a business for fishing. A lot of times we set up LLCs, limited liability companies, and they're fairly simple in most of the states around the country. Easy to form, easy to manage. You set up probably a single member LLC, or if you and a tournament partner always fish together, you could set up a multi-member LLC, the two of you equal partners, and you manage the income that's coming into that, but you also manage the expenses that are going out from that. So those tournament entry fees that you paid, which you may not have thought to deduct at the end of the year when you had that $10,000 tax bill, those are deductions from the income that you received. There are other deductions such as fuel that you may have spent for the tournament, baits that you spent at the tournament, and other disposable items that if you're really not thinking about all of the ins and outs, you don't really know what your total fishing income and expenses are for the year. So a company can help you put all of that in a silo and know exactly what came in, exactly what went out. And at the end of the year, it makes it a lot easier for settling up with whoever you need to settle up with.
All right. What is this threshold as far as gross income that you have to count the revenue that you earn from fishing? Like $600, I think is what it is.
$600. $600. Yeah. So that's fairly easy to achieve if you fish a lot.
All right. And the best advice that you could give somebody that, let's say they make between $1,500 and $3,000, lower amounts, but still, you still have to pay tax on that. What is the best advice you could give somebody like that? Is it to go ahead and have your attorney / CPA or whoever form an LLC or an S Corp or whatever and keep everything that you're doing from a fishing standpoint separate from your personal?
It probably would be an LLC, and that would probably be my advice. Now, I say probably here, and this is where the attorney comes in, and I have to give the disclaimer and say this is not legal advice that we're giving here. Speak with your own attorneys, your own accountants, of course. But based on that individual's facts and circumstances, what other income do they have coming in, right? Are they making $50,000 in other income a year? Are they making $100,000? That $1,500 to $3,000 may or may not make a big difference in their total taxable revenue, and so those are things that you take into account. And let's be realistic here. There is a cost associated with registering an LLC. You have to pay the state where you live to form that company. I mean, sometimes it's not a lot of money, less than $100, or sometimes it's $150 or a little more. But then you have to renew those every year as well. So there is money that's being paid. By the way, that money that you're paying to register and renew the LLC, that's a deduction from the $1,500 to $3,000 that you made in tournament income. So already, you're seeing how income comes in, expenses go out, and you've just offset the amount that you would have otherwise just paid if you turned in a 1099 on your personal taxes.
All right, one more question, then I'm going to send it to Matt. Can you give any advice on how important it is that if you are going to do this, even from a local or regional standpoint, to maintain good records, especially from an expense standpoint? What advice can you give from there?
Absolutely critical, Mark. I'm glad you mentioned that. And, if let's worst case scenario, you're audited, you have to be able to produce everything that's out there. But from a good corporate governance standpoint, you can create a separate bank account for this company. And again, the checks that are paid at these local tournaments can be made out to your company. If you have any sponsorship type deals, those can be made out to your company. And so now, we're kind of evolving and talking blending now when you go to the next level and your sponsors are giving you revenue to promote their products. They're not going to promote John Smith, the fisherman. You want to be paid as John Smith Phishing LLC or whatever company that is. That money gets deposited into the business's checking account, and then expenses are paid out through there. A lot of folks say, well, gosh, if I haven't made any money yet, what do I do? How do I get money in there? You can contribute personal funds to that business bank account that's considered a capital contribution on behalf of the owners, or it's owner equity in that company. You can put that money in there, and then you can pay expenses out using the funds that you contributed. So the key, though, is keep clean records, separate bank accounts, do everything as individual as you possibly can. And when you pay yourself, meaning, you profit at the end of the year, write a check to yourself and manage it that way. Don't just go to the grocery store and start buying groceries that are totally unrelated to fishing out of your business account.
Good advice. All right, Matt.
So let's just say you're going to plan on fishing the BFLs this year, and this is your first year as a boater, and you haven't ever won anything. Is it still a good idea to do that, or do you wait until you're like, okay, this is something that I'm going to fish, I've made some money, now I think it's viable? Or is it better to start out at the beginning and establish everything and then grow with it as you grow?
My advice is to build as you grow. So if you have the means to form a company now, realizing that you don't know how much income you're going to make, whether it's 1,000 or 0 or 10,000, it's not a bad problem to set up that company now. Track all of those expenses. Even if you don't make a profit this year, you may still have losses that you can carry over or deduct from other revenue that you're making. And then you have the structure in place for that time when you hit it big and you do cash that $10,000 check at the BFL. You don't want to be trying to figure this out after the fact and wondering what you're going to do when you get that 1099 and it goes onto your personal taxes.
All right. I got one more question.
All right.
Because this is a real world issue here. It's 6 a.m. You got 3 boats lined up before you. You're getting your gas. It says, go inside to get your receipt. You're doing all this stuff. Like, what is the best way to actually keep track of this stuff? Because I think we've all been there. You run in, you grab your ice and stuff. You paid cash. Oh, I didn't get my receipt for that. Screw it. I'm fishing today. It's tournament day. I'll worry about that stuff later. You don't get the receipt at the gas pump. You go into Bass Pro. You grab 6 packs of worms and pay $50 for it cash. Toss them in the boat. Like, I think it's real easy for a lot of anglers. And when I had this discussion with other anglers, me included, I'm just being real here, to have the best intentions at the beginning of the year and have it set up. But then in the heat of the moment, it's just a pain in the butt to carry it through the entire year. Like, you're like meticulous for the first 3, and then it kind of gets murky as it goes on. Like, what's, in your opinion, the best way to actually make sure this thing lasts for the duration and it's super clean at the end?
Well, first of all, I'm proud of you for actually carrying cash, because very, very few people do that anymore. And it's all electronic payments in some form or another. So if you're in that situation where you're paying cash, take the 10 extra seconds to get the receipt. A lot of folks will create like a Dropbox link or something like that, where you can take a picture of the receipt. You can upload it into your, wherever you're going to store all of your receipts from the year. So whatever that record keeping system is for you that works and that you will stick to. Now, of course, you can go out and procure fancy accounting systems, things like that. But if you're not at that level to need it yet, some of the free tools can really help you stay organized.
Are debit card or credit card statements sufficient as far as documentation?
You should have the receipts, but obviously, if it's something like an entry fee to and any of those tournaments, and you can relate back to that email that says, "Hey, you paid this entry fee of X amount on such and such a date," you have other records that will help you substantiate what that is.
All right, Matt.
And then one more question, because this is the other thing you run into all the time. You're fishing a team tournament. You've got your LLC, whatever. Hey, you win the team tournament. The captain of the team gets the check for $1,000. Hey, $1,000. Then you've got $1,000 in, but then you got to give $500 to Jim, who all he did was net your fish all day, but he still gets the $500. How do you split that up?
It's a great question.
My tournament partner will be glad that I'm calling him out for netting my fish all day. But in that situation, the company can take in that $1,000 and then pay the $500 out to Jim for his fee as netting the fish. And if Jim doesn't have a company himself, then it's paid to him personally, and now he's going to get a 1099 at the end of the year, assuming it goes over that $600 threshold that we were talking about.
He get a 1099 from you? Your
Correct.
company then?
Yes, you're.
But if it was only $500,
if it's only $500, you would not have to. That's correct.
So then you would have to generate a 1099 and be like, "Hey, Merry Christmas."
They don't come out until the following year. They come out in January, so it's a post-Christmas gift.
All right, what advice would you give for folks that pay cash for tournaments? Do you really have to request a receipt from whatever club or organization? Can you use your weigh-in slip as a receipt? I mean, how would you work that out if people pay cash for tournaments?
If you're in an informal type situation, here in Florida, we have the permit exemptions that you get when you fish a tournament. And so that would be, something that if that's the only thing you take away from that event and that's the only thing you can save, then, similar to if you've ever gone to have the business meals and you write on the back of the receipt who you had dinner or lunch with, that you were talking business, and maybe a note to yourself about what you talked about. On those tournament exemptions, you could write, this was the day, it was this club, and, came in this place and made this amount, hopefully you made money.
All right, last question, and then we're going to move on to the vision. Can you really tell the fans out there and the anglers and the weekend guys and girls, how important is it to have a really good, trusting relationship with your CPA?
It's so important. I mean, we don't want to be out here winging it and get it wrong and end up paying more in tax than you should have, right? I mean, that's what it all comes down to. We want to pay the amount that we're required to pay, but not anything more. So if your records are sloppy, the result for your sloppy records is you're probably going to pay more in tax. So there's your incentive to do this and do this well and take the extra 15 seconds to get that receipt. Because if you look at it from the standpoint of, I'm either going to take the 15 seconds to get this receipt or I'm going to pay tax on that amount because I don't now have an expense to offset what I just spent.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The CPA that I've had, I've been with him, 30 plus years. He did my returns when I was at UPS. He's been around a long time. Knows the fishing business too. That's an added plus when you can get a CPA or an accountant that is very familiar with what takes place in the fishing, tournament fishing industry. So that helps a ton. This is really, really good stuff, but I think it's really important, that last question and your response, Daniel. If you ever have a question, ask your accountant and don't react. With this situation, it's much more proficient to be proactive rather than reactive. Because the last thing you want to have is an audit, right?
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. It always costs less to ask.
Yeah. All right, man.
But this is basic stuff that, like, if you have a quilting business, if you have a card collecting deal, like, we're just doing it for fishing. Like, there's like tens of thousands of other hobbies and stuff that you could do the same thing with, right? It's just that there's so many more crazy weird things with fishing,
with one distinction in there, Matt, and that is that the IRS doesn't like you creating businesses for hobbies, right? We when we're going into this, our intention is to make money at it.
Okay.
It's not to do it for as a hobby. So
if you're going to sell quilts and it's going to be part of your income, then it's worthwhile. If you just enjoy quilting and spend some money on it, it's a hobby.
Enjoy quilting, spending money on it, and paying an extra tax because you don't plan on generating any real income from it.
Okay.
All right. Great stuff there. Best advice, though. Hey, get hooked up with a really good accountant, good CPA, and trust that person, and they will hopefully take really good care of you.
So, like, to
and
find
be
one who
proactive.
knows fishing, do you just go up to a guy who wins a tournament and doesn't look stressed out? And you're like, hey, I know you win a lot, and you always seem not to be stressed out. Like, who's your CPA?
Yeah, you could do that, I guess. You could.
Okay.
Be proactive.
I
mean, don't go to the yellow pages, okay, and just pick out some CPA in there. Do some posturing, communicate. People forget that. Don't send somebody a text and go, "Hey, who does your 1040?"
This was the bonus section of the show.
Anyway, so let's move on there. And once again, really appreciate you giving everybody advice out there. And please, people, don't take it lightly. It is something that if you are earning income from fishing, that's something you definitely need to make sure that you're proactive on. All right.
Suggestions. This was the part that I wanted to have Daniel on the show for.
Yeah.
And we talk about this in a roundabout way all the time, and sponsorships, viability, sustainability. How do you get young guys without disposable income, not independently wealthy, established in the sport when it's hard for them to get sponsors, when they haven't won something big, when you're not a Jordan Lee or a Jacob Wheeler, but you have the talent that it takes, and it's hard. Really hard to get established, especially if you're Jeffries, who wants to do a one and done for a number of times before he then
changed
his mind to finally give you 2 years. Like, I experienced that halfway through this year. Like, it is it's a real stress.
Yeah.
And it affects you on and off the water and all sorts of things. So then Daniel kind of has this kind of concept. I don't know how you want to get into it, but I was intrigued on it. It reminded me of one of Jeffrey's manifestos, something that was right up the BTL alley, and kind of a concept. So lay it out.
All right, let's do it. So let's separate out the folks who have been in the industry and have great success in the industry, because they are doing it well. They're doing it right. They may have taken some hard knocks along the way, but chances are the folks, the top 10% of the field are not wondering who their next sponsor is going to be, whether they're going to have enough to pay for the tour next year, if they're going to have somebody wire them money to get home from wherever they are, that type of thing, right? So let's talk in terms of both the new anglers who are entering the pro field, and then those who have been around a bit, but may be at risk of not continuing for some reason or another. And by the way, all the things that we just talked about apply to all of these folks as well, right? So you get to the end of the year and you haven't planned to pay a tax bill, for example, that can bankrupt somebody's next year if you have to take a large chunk of the money that you were planning on paying entry fees for and pay taxes because you didn't factor that in. Okay, so all of this applies and moves forward. So the issue with the sponsorships, and this goes between the anglers and the sponsors, is it's all about loyalty, right? The sponsorship deal is all about loyalty. Sponsors want to know that the angler who they're signing up for however many years is going to be there and is going to continue to invest in that brand. The angler, however, the newer angler, is looking at, what's the bottom line? If I need X dollars to make sure I can fish the tour next year, and I have a sponsor that is giving me, this amount, but I have another sponsor that's willing to give me just a little bit more, I've got to take a little bit more because I have to. Uncle Frank said last week that his advice to the new anglers was to make sure you have enough money to make it through the year. If you're that angler and you're talking to sponsor one and they've offered you, $20,000, and sponsor two is offering you $25,000, you're probably going to have to take $25,000, right? So they're very beholden to that sponsor, and if they've been with them for, a couple of years and their contract is expiring, and now they're talking to others who are willing to give them a few bucks more, and you're right back in that situation where 20 versus 25, that's a big difference, right? Probably going to take the 25. And so the sponsor looks at it from, well, gosh, the anglers aren't loyal to our brand, and the anglers look at it as, well, they're not investing in me as the angler, because if they were, they would have offered me the 25,000 that somebody else did versus the 20.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two ways you fix this. One is you go outside and you obviously go for the non-endemic sponsors. And, there's some great examples of non-endemics that have worked well. There's some examples that haven't worked so well. Or you look for another funding source. And one funding source, go back to the startup company, the technology company. Think Shark Tank, where you're the business owner and you're saying my brand is worth $200,000. I want you to invest in my brand and become an owner in my brand, become an investor in my brand. And in return for that, when I make a profit, you will make a profit with me. So again, think of it in terms of Shark Tank. If somebody's brand is worth $200,000 and you want to buy a 5% stake in that person's brand, you write them that check for 10 grand, and guess what? They don't have to work for that other than going out and fishing. And it gives them the ability to relax a bit and just focus on fishing, not having to worry about, a weekly social media post for this brand or attending, this conference for that brand. They just go and fish, and it takes the edge off so that they can look back at that sponsor who they've used for years and years and years. And yeah, that sponsor might only be offering them 20, and somebody else may have tried to attract them with 25. But you know what? I'm going to be loyal to the sponsor who I've been with for years, and maybe I'll accept less because I have another option here that's offset, and I'm not required to switch between each sponsor for just a little bit more money each year.
Interesting. So how would this come to play? In other words, if somebody wanted to do this, what do you see, or what's your vision of how this would come to fruition?
So just like in Shark Tank, where you pitch yourself and you say, this is my ability to make a profit in X number of years, right? How many years is it going to take? You can do the math on this and see, what the average income is for a professional fisherman over a course of years versus what
tournaments only, though. You're not talking about their side sponsorship income. You're talking about money that they earn in tournaments, or as a whole in their...
As a whole, that sponsorship. Remember, we talked about their sponsors are paying their company. I'm buying into that company. So okay. If they're getting that 20,000 from a sponsor, then we know that 20,000 is probably going right back out to entry fees, and the real profit for the anglers is probably going to come on the winnings, and that's the part that's unpredictable. You can't predict if you're going to be in the money 1 out of 8 or 8 out of 8 or 0 out of 8. But from an investor standpoint, I have the faith in that angler that I'm willing to put my money into their business enterprise, that I think eventually, maybe 2-3 years, they're going to turn a profit, and maybe I'll get a small percentage of that back. Or
is it?
Go ahead, Mark.
Let me ask you this before you go. Is this more of an emotional buy or purchase or whatever you want to call it? I don't know. Rather than a true investment? Or do you think that the underlying decision to give somebody 25 grand or whatever the number is truly a belief in that you are going to generate revenue from that $25,000 investment?
Well, if you look at investors in the technology world, many of them will invest in 10 different companies in hopes that one of them hit it big. So, do they believe every one of those has the potential to hit it big? 100%. But
okay.
Are all 10 of those going to do it? No. Highly unlikely. So if I'm making an emotional investment in, let's say, 10 anglers who are, going out and growing their brands, chances are in 5 years, statistically speaking, a few of those won't still be on the tour or won't be operating in the same capacity that they are now. But you have to realize that going in. And hey, maybe I got lucky and I invested in the one who turns into the next KVD or Jacob Wheeler or whomever.
Let me say this, and then I'll shoot it your way, Matt. I actually saw a very similar example of this back in the late 80s, early 1990s in the professional bowling world. There's a gentleman, his name is Richard Altman, actually lives on Lake Fork now. He was huge into fishing, and that's another story, but he was a proprietor. He owned and was invested in several bowling centers. He had a big bowling center here in Oklahoma, but he invested in, I'm not saying sponsored, I'm saying invested in 6 professionals over probably 4 or 5 years. And he did make some money from investing in those 6 tour level players, of which he was able to take some of the, profits that he had. But that relationship that he had with those 6 guys that were on tour, the pressure for the guys that were on tour went away from a financial standpoint. I mean, they were not out there trying to perform and knowing that, man, I got the mortgage payment, I got the car payment, I've got insurance, I've got all these intangible expenses that I've got to pay every month. He was vested in them being successful on tour and really took what he felt like was the number one thing to overcome, which was the financial pressure of being on tour. So he felt like, well, if they don't have the financial pressure, they're going to perform better. And if they perform better, they're going to make more money. I get that. But he was the only guy that really did that. And where I see this in the fishing world is, do we have enough guys or girls out there that are willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get this thing caught up, catch on and really identify that this is and that's why I brought it up, this is more of an emotional transaction than it is a profitable transaction, to where they can actually see the success and they want to be involved in the industry. They want to be involved in helping these guys out. How many of those people do you think truly exist out there? And if they're already out there, how come they haven't jumped on board already?
So probably more than we both think exist out there. And
okay.
I would flip that and say that it's probably more hesitation on the angler side, because what we're talking about here is not the norm. The norm is you go hit up every sponsor and see what they're willing to shake out for you for the year. That's the norm. That's what everybody's used to doing. This is not the norm. Professional fishermen are not used to going on Shark Tank and pitching what the value of their brand is. So if you can get a group of 5 or 10 anglers who understand this concept, see the value in it, and realize that, hey, if I go hit it big this year and have, $250,000 in tournament winnings, a percentage of that is going to go back to my investors who, whether it's one or many, who helped me get off the ground. That's the other mindset change that we have to impress upon people. This is not the norm, and we need to realize that.
Matt?
All right, can we lay this out linear for people like me who need to see it? So we'll just start out. You have Elite Series rookie angler A, right? How do you value a brand? That's my first question.
That is the hardest
because that's the Shark Tank thing. Like, I always see them go in and they're like, well, we're offering blah, blah, blah for 10%. And then they lose their mind. They're like, you're saying that at 10%, your company's worth $3 million and you've sold $7 worth of socks? Get out of here.
So you can look at a few objective criteria. Number one, what are their past winnings? How much have they made over the past 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever? Is this their first year at the tour level and they came through an alternative means that they didn't have to go up and rise through the ranks, so to speak, like the Opens or the Pro Tour? So if that's the case, and you're talking about someone who truly has no history per se, I don't know what you put on that number. that's between the investors and the angler and what they're willing to strike a deal for. But from an objective standpoint, if somebody went up through the opens and you can qualify what revenue they brought in through their various tournament escapades and what their expenses were. Were they profitable at the end of last year? And what are their expenses going to be this coming year? How do we forecast that? What do they need not only for this year to be successful, and as Mark said, take that pressure off so they can focus on fishing, but they're going to need money to live their lives. It's not just income and expenses related to fishing tournaments, right? You're on the off season and you have to pay that mortgage or that rent or those groceries that we talked about that you're not paying for out of the business account. So what does that look like, and how much do they really need to have that pressure taken off? There's another concept that it works well in the medical industry where you have a bunch of highly skilled doctors and physicians, surgeons, whomever. They create these groups of practices, and then they bring in a management company to handle all of the business side of the house. That management company may have a percentage ownership in the practice of those, surgery center or physician center or whatnot. It allows those doctors to just practice medicine and not have to worry about hiring staff, firing staff, paying taxes, dealing with accounting, all of those business things. You want them focused on treating patients. We want anglers focused on fishing. And if that means you can be on the water from daylight to dark, then mission accomplished. You're learning as an angler and the skills that are going to make you the most money as an angler and make me a little bit of money as an investor.
So these obviously, I would think, would not be 1-year deals. These are, 3, 4, 5-year deals if they put these together.
If I'm buying into a company, I'm an investor until I get bought out.
Okay. Is it similar to selling shares? Because we have seen this in this industry before. Who was it, Matt?
James Biggs did it. Basically, the championship for the FLW Tour was on a place that he thought he could win it. It was $500,000 at the time. He didn't want to pay it. He had 6 people that he knew that all paid a different percentage. He split himself up into whatever it was to equal the cost to be on tour, and then their payout was whatever percent he earned during the year, whatever percent they bought in is what he got back. It turns out he missed the cut by 2 points that year, so he didn't get to fish for it, but all of his investors got their money back, but he didn't get to make anything, so he broke even.
So
very simple. It seemed very simplistic.
Think about what's changed since then, though. Now an angler's brand and angler's value is much more than just the tournament winnings. When you think about the social media presence and the other promotion that they can bring to themselves and the other avenues, listening to Andrew yesterday and talking about the various ways that he's out there making a living at this, it's clear that he is diversified himself. He's not just banking on going and fishing, one tour or one stream of revenue. And those are the types of opportunities that when you're not worried about how I'm going to pay to do this next stage, that's where you can find real growth and accelerate the company accelerate the brand and turn it into, the empires that we've seen by some of the greatest in the sport.
Okay, so I just want to make clear. So you are not buying into a percentage of the angler's tournament winnings. You are buying into their brand, their entire thing as a whole. Or is it just the tournament winnings that if you invest in an angler, you get a percentage back on? You see what I'm saying there, Mark?
Yeah.
Like, if let's say angler A makes $20,000, let's say you have 10% of angler A, and he makes $10,000 in tournament earnings and has $30,000 in sponsorship. That angler has to be transparent to show you what his brand is worth. So he brought in $40,000 that year plus whatever you gave him. So your kickback on that is his overall business, whatever his business income was that year. Or is it just off of the $10,000 that he had in tournament earnings and his other side sponsorships are separate from what you could potentially profit from?
I want to buy into the company, not into the potential to win a tournament. And so that includes the entire business, because again, remember, these expenses that we're talking about are not just for tournament expenses, right? If you're promoting yourself and doing sponsored YouTube posts or whatever, those are business expenses that anglers are paying for as well. So income from one stream and expenses from another, and if you grow this thing and you create sort of a management team like we were just talking about there, who's to say that the right investor doesn't have a media team behind them that could come in and create the videos for you and manage the social media and have a legal team, have a financial team, an accounting team. If you find the right folks and you get the right deal, it really allows that angler just to focus on fishing. Go fish. That's what we want you to do. Go fish.
All right. I want your opinion on this, Daniel. One thing that has taken place in recent years in the fishing industry is PEGs have really become involved, private equity groups, in the purchase of a lot of companies in the fishing world. Typically a PEG, they're in it for one reason. They want to come in, buy the company, turn it around, make a profit, and sell it as quickly as they can once they get to that threshold of profitability that they deem, all right, we've reached it, let's get rid of it, boom, we're moving on to something else. The one thing that we haven't seen, though, is venture capital, which is different, all right? In other words, people out there that have money, companies that have been formed, they're out there, they're looking for things to invest in. I talk about, and Matt, he gets sick of me saying it, the with them. What's in it for me? What's in it for a venture capital group or a group of people that have a lot of money to do this? What's the with them?
So go back to invest in 10 and hope that one hits it big.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's in it for them. If the one hits it big, then that could be a major payday. The other reason we see some of these private equity acquisitions is economies of scale. And if one manufacturing plant has an accounting department and another manufacturing plant has an accounting department, well, you can combine those two, and we really only need one accounting department. So there's your economies of scale. Right. So the cost of conducting business has just decreased. You could do the same thing with anglers, where if we pool together a few anglers on some sort of an angler-based team, well, the cost of them fishing can be reduced because all of their administrative overhead is taken care of, and maybe it's not a 5% stake in those brands that you need, because all it takes is 2 to 3% to be profitable, pay your expenses, and make a few bucks back over the course of a few years.
All right, Matt.
So what happens, like, if Angler A goes out, has a sucky year, is seen using the wrong rod on TV, his sponsors drop him, he goes over, and he doesn't make any money, and his value drops then?
Sounds like a breach of contract that they'll need an attorney to represent them.
Okay. Let's take that out of the way. Let's just say the guy sucks and has a really bad year.
Yep.
His value then is decreased from when you invested in him.
Sure. And that's the risk of any investment. You buy real estate in a depressed market hoping that it's going to increase in value, and it doesn't. That's the risk that you took as an investor. There's no guarantees in any investment. I mean, if investors are looking for a guarantee, they're going to put it in a mutual fund or money market account and let it collect a fraction of a percent of interest.
And then, so there's like a small niche of anglers that this would work for. You have to have a big upside without a lot of expendable income, because you're basically saying the only way that I think I can get to the next level is to give up part of my company in a roundabout way, right? Is that a fair way to say it, or am I not looking at it like as a partnership? You see what I'm saying? Like if you're a Jacob Wheeler, it would not there was like a little bitty window, like after he won the All-American and was on tour, but before he won the Cup and was making a ton of sponsorship dollars, where this would make sense for him to do.
It would make sense for Jacob Wheeler at a much higher price. So,
Okay.
His valuation is not a $200,000 enterprise. It's significantly higher. And so any percentage of his enterprise is, you're talking probably six figures or so to buy into at a equity stake in something of that nature.
And then you're in it for as long as your contract is like, hey, we're going to put this much money towards you for this number of years.
It's generally in perpetuity or until you're bought out. So,
and bought out is a guy who you own 10% of wins back-to-back Bassmaster Classics, and you have a buyout clause in there of $100,000, and instead of having to do that, he just writes you a check, and now thanks, or how does that work?
Probably not $100,000, but the difference in what the value was when I bought in versus what the value is when I'm being bought out. So there's my return.
Mm-hmm. Is the sketchiest part in this determining a value? Is that the hardest part in this?
It absolutely is, because a new angler that doesn't have a history, we're guessing at that number, and in order to give them anything sizable to take the pressure off, then it really needs to be
you have to overinvest in them. 100%. That's the only way it works. To take the pressure off, you'd have to overinvest, because a new angler who's not showing any profit and has proven himself at the lower levels but not at the top, like, you don't know what you're getting. So in order for it to make a difference, you have to kind of overinvest a little bit, don't you?
Yes, and that's what every investor in every tech startup has ever done since the beginning of time. When you're talking about a company that hasn't made $1 in income yet and just has this idea or concept, and some investor writes them a big check to own a small percentage of that, they're guessing on what the value of that is going to be.
I got you.
Okay, I get that. All right, I get it. And I'm really curious if there's ever been anybody in this fishing world of, it doesn't matter where you're fishing professionally, has ever approached a venture capitalist and actually made a pitch to a VC, because what I am familiar with and what I have dealt with in the past, VCs are dealing with millions and millions and millions of dollars. They're not concerned about 250 here, 100 here, 100 there. So my question after saying that, Daniel, is there strength in numbers where you could actually, let's say, pool together 5 anglers and actually make a pitch to a VC company and go, look, we're looking for $2.5 million over a 5-year period. This is what we want to do with this team that I put together. This is how we're going to be represented. This is your potential revenue outcome from the investment that you have. Because you're right. There is one thing and one characteristic about VCs. They're betting on the come. And most of the time, it happens 1 out of 10 times. But when it does hit, they make a ton of money. That's not really the case with this. That's why I get back to, okay, is this an emotional buy? I would be enormously curious if there's anybody out there that is in the VC world that understands or is familiar with professional fishing. That would be intriguing to me to see if they would even dip their toes in it for, say, $1 million.
I don't know that you would get a professional VC to drop $1 million on that unless it was a large pool, like you mentioned, and an angler focused team. But I think there's a lot of value in those angler focused teams, and being able to manage for economies of scale, just like we see on the mergers and acquisitions world, being able to manage anglers and let them focus just on fishing.
All right, it's an interesting concept, and I would be enormously intrigued. I think it would be hilarious if we actually did see an angler go on Shark Tank. Everybody's kind of on board, man. They think it should be you.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do that? I think you ought to submit something. Why not?
To go on Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Oh, I get eaten alive. I don't understand. I'm not, like I said, everyone has, listen, this is the way, I'm in my mid-30s right now, right? So I'm not like a young guy. I'm not like an old guy. but I'm old enough now to where I understand that everybody has strengths and weaknesses. And some people's strengths are because of their weaknesses. Some people's strengths are despite their weaknesses. We have this conversation off air, too.
Yeah.
But I feel like you reach an age where you realize what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you can either slowly die because of your weaknesses, or you can accept, hey, these are weaknesses, these are things I need to work on. I either need to get better at it, be around people who are better at it, or learn to manage it, or else it will affect your strengths. Once you do that, then you can increase your strengths because you're no longer being held back by your weaknesses. And that's a struggle that I think everyone faces regardless of whether it's in fishing, it's in life, it's in anything. But I feel like the most successful people, and I'm not saying I've done this well, you've done it somewhat well, Mark, but I think the most successful people identify their strengths and weaknesses, accept their weaknesses, and then figure out whether it's through them, through someone else, or what they need to do to manage those weaknesses, and say, listen, I'm never going to be a financial wizard. I don't comprehend. This is it. This is what I suck at. But if I surround myself with these people and do this and this, I can make it not a weakness, so I can focus on getting stronger on my strengths that I am really good at.
Interesting.
Let me throw one more thing out there for you guys, and that is, we have a lot of self-employed anglers who are dealing with the same issues, things like, what do I do about 401k? What do I do about health insurance? What do I do about, paying taxes on a quarterly basis? So, to the extent there's a solution to fix that problem for all of the anglers so that you don't have all of these people running around wondering how to do the same thing, there's another opportunity there to bring all of them together and have actual payroll, all of them, or the team that we're talking about, have actual payroll, have a 401k, and have a future, have a guaranteed amount of salary, regardless of if you don't have the best year, because chances are, if you're among those who are willing to stick it out and you have that down year, you're going to get back on your feet and focus on fishing. That's the goal. Focus on fishing.
All right, man. Well, interesting concept. Like I said,
you think it will work?
If anybody out there is involved with a VC, I would definitely love to talk to you.
You think it would work?
I think it's, honestly, I think it's a needle in a haystack. I think there are a handful of people out there that are willing to jump on board and donate the money necessary.
But they're not donating. They're not donating.
Okay, investing in that situation. Now, having said that, and I've given examples during this presentation, you and I both know, Matthew, there have been endemic companies that actually had some of the guys that were out on tour as employees of that company. They got health insurance, they got 401k. That was their job. Their job was to be a professional angler and represent that company at all times and do other things that the company wanted them to do from a promotional standpoint. That went away. That was part of their cost reduction initiatives. That no longer exists. All right. Yeah, there might be a handful of guys out there that still have something going on, but I'm talking there were up to, I'd say at one time, maybe 50 to 75 guys that had this going with multiple companies that were involved in this industry. Doesn't happen anymore. So that's why the banding...
It does, just not on that big scale.
Not on that scale.
Yeah,
they're not employees.
But I know multiple guys who are employees of their sponsored company.
Yeah. That was a great gig. Think about that, Daniel. If you had that guaranteed income coming in, you didn't have to worry about health insurance, didn't have to worry about retirement. There was a 3% match in 401k. It was an incredible deal to be involved in this industry. Then that's when all the cost reduction initiatives went into place and it went away. Now, I do say this, somehow, some way, and I couldn't remember the gentleman's name that started the Crown Royal team that we talked about with Aaron. And somebody sent me an email and gave me a little background, and I apologize. I don't have it in front of me. But that group, and I cannot remember the group that actually started that, really tried and dipped their toes in the pool to try and somewhat put something like this together.
So was there not a deal with like Paul Pagnato and Kurt Dove and the BK Racing team where they had a team that was like a co-op and they had
that lasted 1 year.
Some cars that were like that and some boats that were like that, and they had I think 3 boats and a couple different cars, and it was this same kind of concept.
Yeah, a little bit. So my initial kind of thought process of this whole concept is
gut reaction. I
think the model is you got to get a group together. All right.
I don't understand the group versus a personal. I don't mean to make the water muddy
I think it's
here.
more
But
appealing to the investors.
Why would I want to work with a group of guys knowing we're all getting the same thing if
because
Joe sleeps in till 10 in the morning and doesn't catch him and I catch him? I'd rather just have one guy who's invested in me than have to worry about my compadres.
Here's why. Because if you're Alex Redwine and you really don't have anything and you have the option.
He's got stuff you just bet as far as.
Well, no, I'm talking about he has no guaranteed income. He has no health insurance. He has no 401k. All right, based upon his hypothetically based upon his fishing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the dude may have $1 million in the bank. I don't know. I'm not sure on that. But what I'm saying is there is strength in numbers, and if you can build that brand by being a part of that, now you have that guaranteed financial aspect of being a professional angler to where you don't have to worry, oh my gosh, I got to finish, in the top 10.
I understand that.
That's why.
But how do you have 3 guys, and obviously the adding value to that group of anglers is going to be disproportionate. You're going to have one guy who adds a lot of value and maybe one guy who doesn't add any value.
Now you're kind of hedging, you're diversifying, because instead of just one guy that you're really hoping that he does well, you have a group of 5.
But
from an investment standpoint.
But my relationship with the investors doesn't have anything to do with how the other 4 are doing, or it does?
What do you mean?
Am I affected by the other people on my team?
No, you're all part of the team.
That's what I just said. But is my relationship with the investors affected by the other members of the team and what they're doing? What if 4 guys suck and you're doing great? Well, if they're investing it as a whole, then they're still losing money even though you're bringing it in.
Dude, it's like any other thing. If you're on an NBA team and
yeah, but this isn't a team deal. This is 100% an individual
Hang
deal.
on, all right? It's all part of the investment group. What I'm saying is
it like a NASCAR deal?
If you have an NBA team and you got 3 players that are pulling all the weight and 2 guys that are stinking it up and their contract's up for renewal in year 3, what are you going to do? You're going to release them, put them on waivers, or trade them, right? Because they're holding the entire brand down because they're not being successful. You got to remember one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, Daniel. No matter which way you approach this thing, you still have to be profitable, correct?
Absolutely, have to be profitable. And to Matt's concern, there's a number of ways you could structure that, from incentives and any other thing that makes it lucrative for the guy who went out and just knocked out an event, as opposed to the person who was last place.
I think it's a cool concept.
It's intriguing.
It is a very, very good discussion. And Daniel, I appreciate you coming on and being willing to talk about what you're thinking about. Obviously, with the stuff that you're involved with from a technology standpoint, it's kind of like me. It's easy to sit there and try and make comparisons of what you're involved with, and you're like, how can we do this in the fishing world? Agree or disagree?
Totally agree. And again, whatever we can do to take the pressure off the anglers and to get more bang for the buck for the sponsors, so that they are willing to make the investment and know that the angler isn't going to just jump ship year after year and not actually use the products, like the products, right? That's how you get a good, mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah.
Anything else that you feel you wanted to get in while Jeffries and I were going?
I think you guys covered it all.
Hey, what's the fishing like in Florida right now, man?
It's great. It's great. Yeah,
it's always great in Florida.
It's always great. By the way, Matt, offshore grass in Toho. There you go. Everybody's going to be fishing.
Offshore grass. Okay, I'll check it out. Thanks for the hot tip.
Offshore grass.
There you get it.
No, what is it like in November and December in Florida?
So depending on where you are, they're starting to move up. Believe it or not,
Wow.
You can see spawners on the beds in November, a little further south. So they're definitely past the transition and coming up close. And hopefully we'll be seeing some big bags weighed in very soon.
You're a glutton for punishment. I'm just saying that the more I learn about you. You do this law, like if I do like the small business and all this stuff, like, and you're also a marathoner. Like, I mean, like these things are like this is done by choice. It's not like you're like, hey, you're gonna be like expert at these intricacies of all this law and legal stuff, and then you're gonna go run 26 miles or triathlons and all that. Like, I mean, that takes some self-control. I'm impressed.
Hey man, I like I said,
that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, and wish you the best. Have a great Thanksgiving. We will definitely be in touch because he's actually going to help us with the charity thing that I have going on, that we're going to make a donation to high school students or college students across the nation with the BTL scholarship program that we have.
I do have one more question, and
right.
this will answer it. I bet you like to throw a Carolina rig.
I have been known to throw the ball and chain. That's for sure.
It takes patience. It takes an iron will.
Oh, jeez. The grief just continues. All right, Daniel, man, have a great weekend, and thank you so much. Hey, we'll definitely get you back on.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Take care. There you have it, Daniel Whitehouse, and good stuff, man. I like the idea, and you did a great job booking him for the show, because that first part, definitely helpful information.
Yeah.
And then
suggestions.
The concept that he's trying to, and I know exactly what he's doing. Dude, he's dealing with people outside of the fishing industry, and he's doing the same thing. He's like, would this work in bass fishing?
Now here's my question. Is there less of a chance for it to work in bass fishing because the volatility in the industry? Like in the things that it works in, is it predictable? You see what I'm saying?
I do, but I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason is the money's just not there.
The money's not there in the industry?
No, in the investment. In other words,
your
the
upside
ROI
isn't as high.
No, I mean, they can invest in a zillion other things. That's why I really stressed, is this an emotional investment?
Yeah, like you'd have to enjoy bass fishing and want to see people do well and know that, hey, I might lose this money, but instead of investing in something that I really could care less about and possibly making more, I'm going to enjoy this process and being part of the behind the scenes and being part of building this team.
I mean, we've seen that. We've seen that on an individual basis.
Right.
Guys that have money.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
That have invested or helped out or whatever you want to call it.
But I mean, you get in at a tech company, like your ceiling's like billions, like with a B.
Yeah.
Like your ceiling in professional fishing, if you happen to get in on a KVD or a Wheeler, is like $1 million.
Yeah, there's
Would you
just
agree?
The money just isn't there, man. I mean, it just isn't.
But is it there on a smaller scale?
I think that
to where if you enjoy your life, you invest it, you make your money back, and you help the couple dudes or teams' dream come true, and you make some money out of it?
I think that is starting to happen. I mean, we've heard guys say, hey, the community chipped in and got together, and if it wasn't for the contributions and the friendship that I've had with, Mr. Smith,
the
and the
team
community.
deal's over my head. I don't understand why it's more beneficial to do a team than to do like 4 different individuals. Do you see what I'm saying?
We're not going to dive into it. We'll talk after the show. But
I like an idiot for not understanding that?
No. The money that goes into venture capital and when people pitch these VCs ideas and concepts, it is millions and millions of dollars that these VCs are investing. And they're hoping, just like I said, that 1 out of these 10 pitches lands and makes billions of dollars, not millions of dollars.
And then the other thing was, we focus on the tournament winnings, but it's like if Angler X his value changes based on his current sponsorship at the time too. So you have to open that up to your investor on what your sponsors are making, because he was talking about your overall value, right?
Yeah.
So like, it's hard to put it's really hard to put a value.
How many millionaires do you have in fishing?
Quite a few.
How many?
What do you mean? Current millionaires?
Yeah.
What do you mean in fishing?
In the professional fishing.
BPT and Elite Series?
Yeah.
Millionaires. Doesn't matter how they got it. Right now, they're...
No. I'm talking about in earnings only.
Oh, in earnings only?
Yeah.
Like 30.
Yeah, I have no idea what the number is, but it's not
But
that
it also,
many.
Yeah, but it also depends. Like some of them have fished 400 tournaments to get to $1 million. You see what I'm
you're
saying?
Right, you're right.
Like dollars per tournament is vastly different when you got some guys who do it in 2 or 3 years or who win 1 or 2 tournaments and are millionaires. Duckett did $500,000 in a year.
Right,
he did $750,000 in a year. Didn't in 2007 he win a $250,000 major and a $500,000 classic?
Who was that?
Duckett.
Yeah.
Or you hit a Dudley year.
But that doesn't exist anymore.
Or a Scott Suggs year.
All right, so let me ask you this. And once again, I think it falls back to the ROI. Would somebody that has, and it's not an emotional investment, all right? I'm taking that off the table because I think a lot of stuff that happens in the fishing industry is an emotional investment. Would somebody be more likely to invest in a group of 5 up-and-coming golfers or 5 up-and-coming anglers? Where do you think they're going to see the most ROI?
The ceiling's way higher in golf.
That's right.
But what if you hate golf?
I once again, I said take the emotion
Take
out
the
of
emotion out of it, I'm going golf.
You're going golf. Why? Because the ROI is more...
But if I'm going to take the emotion going for it, why aren't you just going to go tech companies or whatever the hottest other new company is?
You could do that, and
out?
people do that every single day, Matt. That's why I'm saying I really think that the only way that this thing would work is when you get that special person that is willing to emotionally invest and has no worries about ponying up $1 million and $1.5 million.
But would you not agree that people who get involved in the golf like to go golfing with the guy that they're
that's part of it.
The guy who backs the guy in the poker tournament likes to sit at the table and play against the guy.
But what is the ultimate objective of that investment?
I think it's twofold.
What is it?
If it's in something that they have an interest in, it's to increase your quality of life, feel like you're helping someone else out. And
that's an emotion.
And to make money. Yeah, but that's why they're doing it. If they were doing it strictly to make money.
See, that's where you're wrong, all right? People that invest money, they're doing it to make money. The vast majority of people that, and now there is that small percentage of people out there that have that emotional investment.
Right.
Because they want to do. It is tiny, Matt. It is a very, very small portion of the people out there who are multi-millionaires because they have so many other options.
Yeah, that everyone's hitting them up and trying to get money from
them.
Dude, yeah.
They have to have that emotional investment because all the, what I call the marginal millionaires, dude, they're still wanting to get rich because in this day and age, if you have $1 million, yeah, you're probably pretty comfortable, but you're not wealthy. There's a difference between being comfortably, having a nice retirement and being wealthy. And the people who are in that zone, dude, that's how they got to that point. They want to continue their building of their wealth. So you got to have that emotional element. All right, in investing in this industry. You just do. There's no way of getting out of it.
Same with bowling?
Oh, 100%.
Same with poker?
No, that's a money deal.
I guess
that is a pure money deal, dude.
Gambling for money.
Golf?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a small, now you reach the stratosphere of where your ceiling is way higher.
Yeah. I mean, and think about this, dude. It goes way, way, way back. People get rich because of one thing. Yeah, people go out and they hit the lottery and they put $1 million on black or whatever on the wheel. But the vast majority of people are wealthy because of one reason. All right? And that's because they were smart with their money. They didn't frivolously spend. And I think it would work. But the needle in a haystack, that was no disrespect to his model. I get it.
Yeah.
But you have to find that one person or that one group of people that is going to invest from an emotional standpoint, and they're not worried about losing, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, whatever it is.
Did I ask dumb questions?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right.
It was, and believe me, all right, this is a very unique BTL that we did today.
I liked it.
But, and I hope people out there, got the wheels turning and really people are going to start thinking not only from a personal standpoint, but really kind of thinking about, we're fishing this team tournament series next year.
If you're on Shark Tank, do you wear dye sublimation?
No.
You don't walk into Shark Tank in the jersey?
I don't think so.
And what do you do? Like just have you holding a big fish on an easel? Like, what's your presentation involved? You show them how organized your crankbaits are?
You have how about the tank? You have the casting tank just set up there off the side.
Yep.
You got the microphone hooked up there.
Here's a video of me flipping and pitching.
I don't know. It is it was a great topic to talk about, and we appreciate him coming on.
He knows what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, and he's passionate. You could hear the passion. It wasn't the typical lawyer, X plus Y equals Z. I mean, the dude fishes, and he's good at it in Florida, and he's very familiar with what's taking place in the professional fishing world and things that take place in the industry. So I greatly appreciate him coming on and giving his opinion and his thoughts and vision on how this would happen. He did a great job. So much appreciation to him. All right, man. What else? Anything else?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, got to make sure, man, when you get home, make sure you put that beer in the fridge quickly.
Oh, it'll be ice cold. I'll just watch it on Sunday nights. I'll save the tan can for Sunday nights.
Yeah. You got to send me a picture, man. Watching Yellowstone, drinking the Yellow Jackets. Isn't that what they call it?
If I have, how many episodes are there? 12 or 10? If I have a beer an episode, I should be good for the whole season.
Yeah, I think 10.
Beer an episode.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway. Tomorrow, man, everybody's favorite day of the week, day 4 with Uncle Frank.
Hey, after the show, I'd like to approach you with a investment opportunity, Mark.
I'm going to be 60 next year, man. I have some plans for
It's a little bit of an emotional investment.
The post 60 life.
You know what you need to do? You need to go back and play the World Series of Poker again.
Check that off the bucket list.
Did you really though?
Oh, I was famous.
You got to go back and knock someone out.
I might do that. I would love to do it again, but it was cool how things went down on that. It's all good. It's all good. But Uncle Frank tomorrow, and then there is a chance during our Thanksgiving break, dude. I'm getting the retirement boat set up.
Okay.
Making sure it's
if
okay.
you want to go crappie fishing, let me know.
Well, I do.
Okay.
I want to go hunt. I want to do some hunting, man. Do I need to do next exercises?
Yeah, right there. Now, John Sokup, mark it down, an hour and 36 minutes in. I pronounced his last name correctly for the first time in 11 years. John Sokup of the Bass Tank can hook you up with telescoping mounts, 12 and 16-inch screens.
All that good stuff.
That is no longer an issue, but yes, I have a 9-inch screen and I have to look down and to my right. It doesn't bother me because I've never hit it with a jig or spinnerbait or a drop shot while I'm casting. So
yeah. Hey, by the way, somebody mentioned the 24-hour show. Yeah, we're working on that. I mean, that's the studio thing put a wrench in a lot of stuff. So yeah, we're definitely going to do the 24-hour show. Just don't know when we're going to do it. So we'll keep you posted on that. All right, everybody, have a very, very safe Wednesday. Matt will be in Tulsa. I will be here. We will be back tomorrow with Uncle Frank. Everybody, stay tuned. That's it. We're out of here.